Hi, this is Phil Shapiro in Tacoma Park, Maryland. I have been reading a really neat book, KenKen Tried and True Tips and Techniques for Beginners. And I am lucky enough to have both authors today joining me. We have Ellie Grueskin, who's a high school student, and Josh Rosen, who is an award-winning presidential math science elementary school teacher. So, Ellie, let's start off with you. Where did the idea for this book come from?
So the president of KenKen and my boss, Bob Pure, said that he thought it'd be really interesting if I could write a book that would possibly introduce KenKen. We've had a lot of books that have been geared towards different levels of practicing KenKen, but he felt that there was never one that kind of helped people understand how KenKen worked, and he thought that having it from the student and teacher perspective would be ideal, as we could both understand what it took to learn KenKen and teach KenKen.
Neat. And so there was other books that were written that were not for beginners, but this is like a beginner's book. So this is like a gentle ramp, right?
Exactly.
Josh, let's hear from you. You use the KenKen puzzles at your elementary school. Do you use it mostly with the upper students because puzzles are difficult?
I've been using KenKen at my school for 6 or 7 years now, probably, and I've started initially doing it with the older kids, but I've actually found that younger and younger students can do them. In fact, I've done them in as low as grade 1, and it's sort of, I feel like it's just the point where the first graders are starting to do a little bit of deductive reasoning where they can start to think about ideas like it's not this, so it must be this, that kind of thinking. Many of the first graders are very excited to solve them, and they're just eager. But they get, obviously get more difficult as the grades progress. But I would say I probably use them primarily with grades 1 to 5.
1 to 5. And how do you introduce them in the school year? Is it like a reward activity after they've finished other classroom math?
Teachers use it in a variety of ways. I mean, it's sort of become I feel like it's sort of become part of the culture of the school. So at the beginning of the year, I have a bulletin board that I put up every year that has puzzles that the students just they'll come down the hall on their way to gym class and they'll just grab some puzzles, or their teacher will send them down to grab some. And it's gotten really exciting where students are starting to design their own puzzles. So they'll come to me with a puzzle that they've designed from scratch, and they'll ask me to check it to see if it's valid, and it's only valid if it has one unique solution. And so sometimes some students have been able to create some 3x3s, 4x4s from scratch, and then sometimes I'll say, oh, it has multiple solutions, so I'll send them back to the drawing board to try to see if they can repair it. So I feel like it's not like something that I've introduced at this point. It feels like it's just sort of something that's part of the school vibe, which is exciting.
And the neat part is that once you become a fan of puzzles, it's really difficult to have a math phobia. If you love puzzles, it's difficult to have a math phobia. Yeah,
I think it really does speak to a different kind of learning. It's I think there are many students I've seen who don't feel as confident in the regular math curriculum, but given a puzzle, some other way of thinking kind of comes over them, and they're often able to it kind of hooks them in a way which is can get them now to start to see themselves as a more accomplished mathematician, which I hope could translate into other areas as well.
Right. So Josh, I want to hear a little bit about your contest. You have a kind of a friendly contest at the end of the school year, a challenge, right?
Yeah, it's coming up right now in a couple of weeks. It's for grades 2 to 5, and the students have a first round where everyone in their class does a bunch of puzzles, and then the top 5 from each class go to a final round, which I facilitate and actually Ellie has attended in years past, and so has the inventor of KenKen. He's come twice to sort of see how things are going, and it's very exciting to have him there, and he'll sometimes talk to the kids a little bit, or he's actually come on other occasions to teach the kids some puzzles. But so the idea is to have some kind of culminating event to just to kind of get kids excited to think about something that they're sort of working towards.
Right.
And I really want to send the message that you really just get good at something by working at it and practicing at it. And it's not about, no one I don't think is like naturally gifted at KenKen really. I really feel like it's something that you just chip away over time and develop a knack for.
So interesting. Let's talk with Ellie a little bit about contests. So your first contest was in Princeton, New Jersey. Where was that located in Princeton?
It was at the public library
At the
in
public
Princeton.
library. And you did pretty well, I think. You won that contest, right? Were there
I did.
Youth and adults?
There were both.
It was both. Okay. And then you went on to the International KenKen tournament, and you placed third. Is that right? Is that with people from other countries?
Yes. So in, I believe, the 2015 International Student Tournament, I placed third overall. Yeah.
Oh, great. Got it. Interesting. So you are, you both love the puzzles and you're quite accomplished. How did the two of you connect up?
Well, we actually we know each other actually through our synagogue, which is interesting. And that was one connection. And then I remember when Ellie was getting ready to do the internship, I had sort of known Bob prior, and he said, "Oh, I have this. There's a student that I know, Ellie Grueskin," and I said, "Oh, I know her." And sort of the internship started, and then from there, Bob made the suggestion that we kind of collaborate on this project. So we had kind of known each other. Our families had known each other beforehand. So it was a nice kind of connection.
Right. Neat.
Yeah. And I'd always known that he'd taught KenKen, and I kind of liked it, before I even started competing. So I always felt somewhat connected to him, even if we didn't know each other quite as well at that point.
Now, Josh, you're an elementary school teacher, and you went to visit Ellie's school. What happened at that visit?
Yeah, so it was very exciting. A student that I had taught in years before in a after-school math club that I run, Math Olympiads, and I do puzzles and other things as well, problems, various different kinds of math activities. But so she, a student who now goes to Ellie's school, contacted me and invited me to come and teach her class some math. So I said, I definitely have to bring puzzles in. So I brought KenKen and one other Japanese puzzle too that I really like. And it was really fun for a lot of reasons, just to have a student who you taught prior kind of remember and be kind of excited about what you'd done and wanted you to share that with her that had never happened before. So that was a huge validation and just very exciting that happened.
Right. And of course, this deductive reasoning that you're introducing with your elementary school students, that's a kind of a life skill that if you pursue whatever kind of career, you might be using it in a science career or a business or trying to figure out the difficult problems of the world. But it starts with a foundation in elementary school.
Totally. I mean, the thing about KenKen, which makes it such a rich puzzle in my view, is this sort of combination of arithmetic thinking and reasoning. And you're sort of, I feel like for myself, my brain sort of toggles between them. There are times where I'm doing pure arithmetic, and then other times where I switch and I'm reasoning, and it's sort of this kind of back and forth that happens in KenKen. And it's sort of like I just enjoy the way my mind works when I'm doing that kind of thinking. And I feel like the earlier that you can teach kids that kind of thinking, especially in a way that's fun and enjoyable and helps them with perseverance. I mean, it just has there's so many benefits to it.
Yeah, and I think that if I can add another great thing about KenKen is that there are just so many ways to approach each puzzle. So, for example, when we were working on the book and we were choosing puzzles and then how to explain it, Josh and I came up with different places to start or different methods to solving. And I think that's been something that's really helpful for me throughout my math courses, is understanding that the initial thought of how to solve a problem might not be the fastest or best way. And that's something really invaluable about KenKen, I think.
Oh, neat. And so for those who might not know, KenKen was invented about 2004. It came to the New York Times, I think, in 2009. And now it's printed in 200 newspapers around the world. So it's becoming a kind of a cultural phenomenon. But it's still, there's many people who haven't heard of KenKen. I work at this public library, and once in a while I'll ask a student who's particularly bright, I say, have you heard of KenKen? And it's so interesting to see their eyes light up when they have, and they go, yes!
Yeah, I mean, can I just comment on that? I mean,
sure,
in my school, it's become to the point where the other day I was teaching one of the secretaries at my school how to do KenKen. There's a 90-year-old woman who volunteers at our school, and she does them. So it's like, to me, it's like one of these activities that's very rare that you could find people of vastly differing ages participating in the same activity. There's not many things like that. But yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, and I think if I can add again, another thing that's really interesting about the book is people always come up to me and say, "Oh, am I the right age for this book? Oh, if I've done algebra, is that enough prep?" And I think what's great about KenKen is that it's really fit for all ages and all levels of math, which is just so great to see people being able to collaborate on such a simple puzzle. Yeah.
I can tell you when I saw this book, I said, this is the book for me because I love difficult puzzles, but I need a lot of hand-holding in the beginning. That's just who I am. I need like the little coaching. I need some coaching to get into it. And since I don't have, in my own community, I don't have the KenKen support structures that you've been building in your communities. I'm kind of on my own here. It's really useful. It's useful for adults to have a book like this that says for beginners. You go, I'm going to be able to handle this one. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also there's some interesting points around that. It's like when kids are beginning, I want to not be too didactic in my approach because I want students to find their own strategies, right? At the same time, I don't want students guessing randomly either because if they're guessing randomly and which is often things that happens at the beginning is they'll just sort of throw numbers in even though they have no idea what the order is. And so I try to get them to think in some sort of systematic way, but at the same time, I don't want them to think that there's like this prescribed sort of way because that kind of goes against the whole problem-solving approach anyway. So it's kind of a balance there.
Yeah, and I think that was a big challenge of writing this book, was figuring out how to balance that. And I think that's part of the reason why we tried to have a little bit of a tutorial with oftentimes giving some different approaches and then a lot of practice problems so that people could develop their own strategies. Yeah.
Now, you invented the problems, right? These were invented?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, we took them from
selected.
Yeah,
they were selected.
They were pre-made.
Still impressed. I'm still impressed. It was kind of like a law casebook where you selected the cases, so interesting. And then there is going to be a large international KenKen tournament this year in New York City. Are you expected to be attending, either or both of you?
Go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, I think I definitely will. There was one this past December as well that we were both at, and that was really exciting.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I love participating in these competitions, even though I have no dream of winning them. Okay. So I tell that to my students. I say it's just enjoyable to be there, to be concentrating on something with a bunch of other people in this way. And I try to, my own KenKen challenge too, is to try not to make a huge deal out about the competitiveness and just because you don't win doesn't mean you're not good at the puzzles. So that's an important thing too. But I love kind of just being with all these people who are like-minded.
Right. Yes.
So last year, the winner of last year's was a gentleman who I believe is from Boston, and he completed a 9x9 for the final puzzle, and he didn't put in a single candidate, a single small number. He just deduced, and I was just watching him work, and I was blown away by this because I was amazed by how I was able to keep track of all that information. I went up to him afterwards. I said, "So what do you do for work?" He goes, "I'm a data analyst." Okay. I said, "No kidding, you're a data analyst. Of course you are." So it was very interesting. Like his work obviously lent itself to being strong at these puzzles.
That is an interesting story.
And that's that's what's so great about these competitions is you get to meet people from all paths of life. Some people who are in math-related fields and some people who aren't, who really enjoy KenKen. And it's super cool, I think, to get to see all these people. Yeah.
Now, do you think if you develop a real fondness for KenKen, does that open up your mind to the possibilities of finding other puzzles that that you might also have the kind of emotional attachment to?
Yeah, I mean, I am mostly into math puzzles. I try to sometimes do crossword puzzles, and I don't have as much necessary interest in them as I do math puzzles, but I do definitely find that becoming good at KenKen over time has kind of trained my mind to think in general, I think more efficiently about other tasks and puzzles in particular.
Right.
Yeah, I know in my experience, I found that the whole process of KenKen, how rewarding it is to kind of, problem solve and look at different approaches, has actually made me really inclined to try other puzzles. So for example, every Sunday, I always start with the KenKen, of course, but then I'll move on to a bunch of other New York Times puzzles because I know how it stretches my mind and how it helps me think.
Right.
Yeah. And you also, Ellie, have a possible plan to do some kind of puzzle group with at your school next year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's in the works. Yeah, exactly.
You planning a puzzle club?
Yeah, it's probably math-based puzzles.
Yeah.
Introducing new puzzles. Showing different approaches, things like that. We're in the process of creating.
Okay, neat.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm talking with Ellie Grueskin and Josh Rosen, high school student and elementary school math teacher, who are the authors of this book. I got to tell you, the two things I really like about this book: very affordable and also short. I mean, the fact that it's short means that it's like non-intimidating. Because if you say here's a beginner's book and it's got 700 pages, that's a little scary. But I think it's a testament to the publisher and to the authors that I think you have a winner of a book here. So I want to thank you for writing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. See you then.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Good night.